Welcome back to #Africa. Nearly a quarter of Ebola infections in the DRC go undetected or are discovered too late. That's according to the World Health Organization. The country has been grappling with the second worst ever outbreak of the virus. Over 1,300 people have died, while 2,000 cases have been reported since the epidemic began in August last year.
A quarter of Ebola infections in the epicenter of the second worst ever outbreak are going undetected or are found too late, according to the World Health Organization. Over 2,000 cases have been recorded in eastern Congo, with more than 1,300 people dying, but the real total may be worse.
The $1 billion question is, how big is that number? We believe at this point, and let me be very cautious here. We believe that we're probably detecting in excess of 75% of cases. We may be missing up to a quarter of cases.
The epidemic is not under control and is spreading fast in the rural area of Mabalako. The number of weekly infections has dropped to 88, compared to 126 in April, but a significant amount of the population, around 10%, are refusing vaccines.
When someone dies in the community, it's a disaster. It's a disaster for the community, but it's a disaster for the response, because that person has been in the community potentially infecting others. So we must get earlier detection of cases. We must have more exhaustive identification of contacts. We need to convince all of those contacts to accept vaccination.
The response has also been hampered by armed conflict in the region. Aid workers have been attacked in the past, and this week 13 civilians were killed in an attack by a group believed to be linked to Islamic State.
A crowdfunding campaign is hoping to turn a patisserie into the Starbucks of Senegal. This method of fundraising has become popular in the past few years. So popular, in fact, that 40% of the pastry shop's backing comes from crowdfunders.
Welcome to Omervé. You might expect to see such a high-end patisserie in Dakar, but it's actually in Touba, Senegal's second biggest city. It's backed by investment group M&A Capital, which has, for the first time, used crowdfunding to finance 40% of the business.
In Senegal, there is a big problem. There is no local economy. When I say local economy, I mean that everything is concentrated in Dakar, when in fact there is huge potential. They were spot on to open this Omervé in Touba, where there is purchasing power, there is demand. There was nothing here before. And so it is also an extremely innovative move, and very interesting to invest outside of Dakar, to create a local economy in places that have an economic potential.
Crowdfunding is in its early stages in Senegal. Investors say that it's partly due to tradition and customs in a country where people lend to family and friends, but not strangers. There is also no regulatory framework to define crowdfunding rules, a major challenge to its growth. But the investors behind Omervé say the traditional banking sector has failed small and medium enterprises, the backbone of Senegal's economy. They were quick to spot the benefits of crowdfunding, not only for themselves, but also for the people of Touba.
Before, I used to go to Dakar or send someone to Dakar to get good pastries, but since Omervé, I don't anymore. Now I come here every day or every 2 days to get my supply of pastries.
Crowdfunding in Africa is expected to grow exponentially into a market worth billions of dollars, according to a World Bank report. And on a continent where access to early-stage capital is practically non-existent, it could be key in helping to close the funding gap. With 2 Omervé patisseries up and running and work underway to open another 2, its investors say they're planning to turn the company into the Starbucks of Senegal.
In September last year, the Constitutional Court made a game-changing ruling on cannabis, allowing the growing and possession of it for personal consumption. But not everyone's happy with that ruling, especially weed farmers in Eswatini.
For a long time, cannabis from Swaziland, or Eswatini as it's now known, was in high demand in South Africa. And farmers like Mbuso made their living growing the Swazi Gold strain, which was sold across the border. But with the growing and consumption of cannabis for personal use decriminalized in South Africa, their main market has collapsed. And if they can't recoup some of the costs for this year's harvest, they'll face economic ruin before they can even change to another crop.
I need the money from the ganja to make something bigger on my feet at home, to farm maize and beans, you see. And I had to grow this first and harvest it and sell it.
Mbuso has been growing cannabis for 14 years, even though it's illegal. He makes about 50 US cents a gram. In South Africa, it sells for 10 times more.
They're good guys that produce good product. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time.
Swazi Gold is potent, and the Eswatini government has given a US company in Florida a 10-year license to produce medical-grade cannabis. But small-scale farmers like Mbuso are still targeted by the police.
This thing is a game like to me, because I farm, sometimes some cops come and ban it.
Farmers may be facing an uncertain future, but a recent report found the legal cannabis industry across Africa could be worth $7 billion. Lesotho, Zimbabwe and South Africa have all relaxed their laws around cannabis.
It's that time where we take a look at some news dominating social media across the continent. A woman in Ethiopia has impressed many after she went to write an exam just 30 minutes after giving birth. Many were intrigued by her determination to write the paper. She says being in labor wasn't painful because she was in a rush to take the test. Tuesday marks 9 years since the beginning of the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Many are taking a trip down memory lane, reminiscing about one of the most historic events in Africa. The goal by Bafana Bafana's Siphiwe Tshabalala is a hot topic. It was the first goal to be scored on the African continent during a World Cup. And some good news out of Botswana on Tuesday. The country's High Court has ruled unanimously in favor of changing the law to decriminalize gay sex. The legislation against homosexuality was imposed in 1965 during the colonial era. And on that note, that's where we leave it for this edition of #Africa. Remember, you can talk to us on Twitter. Our handle is @Africa_ENCA. From me, Ropiwa Madzana, and the rest of the #Africa team, until next time, take care.